G'day viewers, Annie here. This is part 3 of presentations I've been putting together about an overview of recreational gold detecting and fossicking in Australia. I'll put this together as a slideshow video about the different requirements for gold detecting in each state and territory in Australia for overseas visitors, novices, grey nomads, and those of us that travel interstate to gold detect or gold fossick. So the rules and regulations, what you will find in Australia is that fossicking and prospecting is managed by each state or territory, and the rules and regulations may vary in each state, and it can get a bit confusing. Some states require a miner's right or fossicking licence while others don't. Whether you can camp in a state forest differs and so on. Limits apply to how much gold or gems can be taken by a recreational fossicker, and other conditions apply. I just want to note at this part of the video that the information I have here is mainly for gold prospecting, and I've not looked into the use of high bankers or dredges that are prohibited in some states or other like activities. National parks in Australia, as a rule of thumb, fossicking and gold detecting is generally prohibited, and also in conservation parks, fauna and timber reserves. The Native Title Act. Access to some native title lands are excluded altogether, otherwise permission of the relevant registered native title body is required. Now in the Northern Territory, in 2016 publications showed about 17% of the Northern Territory lands and waters were under native title. And native title can exist over pastoral land, but not over Northern Territory freehold land or Crown land used for public roads, railways and buildings. Aboriginal people who hold or have claimed native title rights over land must be consulted about proposed activities on the land, and I'll put up a link to that. In Western Australia, Austrade's website states approximately 90% of Western Australia land mass is under registered and determined native title claims. Their website also provides links to each of the 6 regional native title registration boards, and I'll put up a link to that. Crown land. Crown land is known as all land which is remaining that is not freehold title and is still held by the Crown. And the Crown land is regulated by the relevant state government legislations, and certain requirements must be met before Crown land can be dealt with. Unoccupied land. Unoccupied land, you'll see this expression in researching where to gold detect, and it's mentioned in some mining acts such as the Mining Act 1929, Tasmania, and the Fossicking Act 1994, Queensland. And the best definition I found was unoccupied land means any Crown land to which the Act applies and which is not in lawful possession or occupation of any person under this Act. So it's unoccupied Crown land you can detect. Pastoral leases. Pastoral leases are leases over Crown land that gives the lessee the right to graze to authorised stock on native vegetation, agriculture and horticulture. Pastoral leases are limited to the natural surface only, and the lessee has no right to the soil or the timber. And there also may be times where these pastoral leases are subleased. I'll put up a link to the Austrade website about these land tenures, and also a Western Australia website. Existing leases on land where there is a current mining lease, prospecting lease or the like, permission of the leaseholder should be obtained. Now I'd just like to make a disclaimer here that the information was put together in April 2020 and all care has been taken to ensure it's correct. However, viewers should check with departments within the state or territory for any updates or changes to rules and regulations and policies prior to carrying out activities. So to help you with each state or territory requirement, I've briefly set out the following information for Northern Territory and Western Australia. Now this first map I'll put up I obtained from the Geoscience Australia website, which is a good site to start for research. And the map shows the various regions within Australia where gold was located and mined. And the legend that comes up will show you where gold in excess of 1,000 tonnes has been obtained from various regions. Alright, first up we'll cover the Northern Territory, and here is the map of the Northern Territory from the Geoscience website, showing the areas down through the state, through the Tanami, and further south around Alice Springs. Online research indicates most gold mining production takes place in three main gold fields. That's Pine Creek, Tennant Creek and the Tanami. No permit to fossick is required in the Northern Territory. However, you may need to notify landowners or occupiers of your intention to fossick on their land. There is a formal process for land access that applies, providing at least 7 days' notice, and I'll put up a link to that. They warn that as some pastoral stations and lands are in remote places and the owners only get mail once a week or once a fortnight, then you need to plan ahead for that notice. In the Northern Territory, Fossicking Northern Territory has useful information, and I'll put up a link to their website and a PDF on looking for gold in the Northern Territory. There are a number of declared fossicking areas, only a couple for gold, and maps are available, and I'll put up a link to the declared fossicking areas. Wave Hill is one of the gold fossicking areas. There's also a PDF to gold fossicking in the Northern Territory. Just to note that the term fossicking in the Northern Territory relates to gems as well as gold prospecting. The fossicking in the Northern Territory, which is the Northern Territory Government website, also has brochures and links to rights and obligations of the fossicker and the code of conduct. Also a geoscience report number 11 of gold in the Northern Territory, and also application forms. The application forms relate to fossicking notice and request forms that you can print off. With regard to camping, camping is permitted in some fossicking areas in the Northern Territory, but there is no on-site facilities or water supplies, so you need to be self-sufficient. In all other areas, you are not entitled to camp anywhere you want and should seek permission of the landowner, occupier or mineral title holder. Camping on pastoral stations is subject to a number of conditions, and that's in that brochure, Rights and Obligations, which I'll put a link to. There's an excellent brochure on fossicking code of conduct on pastoral land, and covers numerous topics about the rights of pastoralists and your rights camping on the land. I'll put a link in for that. Right, the next state we'll cover is Western Australia, one of the most gold abundant states, and also very popular with recreational fossickers. This is the Geoscience Australia website map of Western Australia, showing the gold regions from Halls Creek down through Meekatharra, around Leonora, Laverton, Kalgoorlie. In Western Australia, a miner's right is required to fossick and gold detect, and it has no expiry date, unless of course it's cancelled by the authorities for some reason. In Western Australia, there is also a distinction between the words fossicking and prospecting, whereby fossicking refers to the collection of mineral samples or specimens, other than diamonds and gold, for lapidary or hobbyists. Prospecting includes the search for all minerals, including gold detecting, and I'll put up a link to that. The miner's right in Western Australia also allows the holder of the miner's right to pass and repass over land in order to gain access to Crown land for prospecting purposes. I'll put up some links as well to documents for your rights and obligations when prospecting, Mining Act guidelines, and a list of the mining registrar offices. As far as Crown land goes in Western Australia, large sections of Western Australia Crown land are under pastoral leases, and certain conditions apply for access, including notifying the pastoralist, and I'll put up a link to that. With access, the requirement for access of land is set out in the information on the Department of Mines and Industry, or DMP, website, and takes some time to become familiar with. As part of that familiarisation, you'll have to learn Tengraph, and Tengraph is the DMP's online spatial and mapping system displaying the position of Western Australian mining tenements in relation to other land information. It is used by prospectors to determine ground for gold detecting by searching current, historical and expired leases. The DMP runs courses from time to time on how to use Tengraph. Right, I'll put up some links too to the mining tenements explained, details of the Section 40E permit system. Also, rather than me explain the various actions required depending on the leaseholder or landholder, I'll refer you to a chart which is copyright on this informative website called Gold Detecting Western Australia, and I'll put up a link to that. Bill and Udo run gold prospecting courses in Kew, Western Australia, that interstate visitors and newbies find helpful. Courses are also run by Tony Pilkington and his wife Lisa of Gold Talk Leonora in Leonora, and I'll put up a link to them. The DMP also have YouTube instructional videos and run courses on at various regional centres. This is a snapshot of one of the brochures put out by the DMP about safety, prospecting and fossicking in Western Australia, a bit about the miner's right, restrictions over Crown land, obligations when prospecting, and I'll put up a good link to that. You need to be mindful of your safety in a lot of the areas in Western Australia and the Northern Territory. Very unforgiving country, and a lot of prospectors go missing, so they have a good link to safety and the personal communication devices that you should take. As Western Australia is such a large state, it is broken up to mining registrar offices and regional mineral field boundaries, and this map shows those boundaries. The DMP website is a good website to look up information on where you can go prospecting, gives you an overview of the mining tenements and the Section 40E permit. They also have an excellent brochure on prospecting in Western Australia, and it has a checklist of things that you should do before you access an area, and also when you're prospecting what not to do. And there's also links to the Tengraph web where you'll need to look up the information on leases, current and expired. The council at Yalgoo in Western Australia, which is about 217 kilometres east of Geraldton, has taken out or pegged 3 leases for novice prospectors. I understand they're still pending. You can try your hand there at finding some gold nuggets. They charge a $10 fee for a map to the proposed tenement, which is located about 10 kilometres south of Yalgoo. I'll put up the links to any of these brochures and websites in the About section of the video. If you enjoyed it, please tick like, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and feel free to share it. Cheers.